This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. So Baruch Hashem, Tisha B'Av is in the rear view mirror. As the Chassam Sofer says, that the month of Av really has two parts to it. The first part is you made Tsar, and we'll discuss this at the end of the Shiur. And then after Tisha B'Av already, things are looking up. So Baruch Hashem, we're here. And Parshas V'aschanan, the pasuk says, V'aschanan el Hashem ba'isa hilemar. And I beseeched the Rebbeinu Shalom at that time, saying, and the Medrash comments, Uminayin shehispalel Moshe ba'isa yaperik chamesh meos v'chamisha asar pamim. And how do I know that Moshe Rabbeinu davened at that time 515 tefillos? Shenemar v'aschanan el Hashem ba'isa hilemar. And I beseeched the Almighty at that time, saying, V'aschanan b'gematria hachihami. The numerical value of V'aschanan is 515. Because you could ask a question. Why does the pasuk say V'aschanan el Hashem? It could say V'aspalel, V'asnapal, why V'aschanan? V'yivtzar. Why the terminology V'aschanan? There are many words to refer to tefillah. So the Medrash makes a very interesting statement, and that is the numerical value of V'aschanan is 515, to teach that Moshe Rabbeinu davened 515 tefillos, to have the merit, to have the zchus to enter Eretz Yisrael. But Rabbi say, the question is, and if the Torah would have used a different word, V'as Palel, then we would have figured out the gematria of that word and said Moshe Rabbeinu davened X number of tefillos. Does every time the Torah use a word, we have the right to say, well, what is the numerical value of that word? Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Leimar. How long was the Shiur? I don't know, gematria Vayidaber. Are we authorized to try to use gematria to figure out every time we don't know a piece of information? What is the significance that Moshe Rabbeinu davened 515 tefillos? So we go to the incredible comments of the Pnei Yehoshua. Rabbi Yaakov Yehoshua, the great Achroin, who lived from the year Tuf Mem Aleph to Tuf Kuf Tezai in 1680 to 1756. He was born in Krakow, and on his mother's side he was the grandson of Rabbi Shua Heschel, the Maginei Shloimeh, who wrote a famous work defending Rashi from the comments of Tosfos. Interesting, in the year 1703, the Pnei Yehoshua was in his home, and there was an explosion of gunpowder that destroyed his house, and Nebuch, his wife, was killed, and his mother was killed, and his daughter Gittel was killed, and the Pnei Yehoshua was trapped in the debris for many, many hours. And he records in his Hakdama that at that point in time he made a neder to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that if the Rebbeinu Shalom would save him, he would devote himself not just to learning, but to learning sugyos of Shas Be'iyun. And immediately it's as if a path appeared, he writes, and he was able to climb out of the debris. Now the Kotzker Rebbe said about the Pnei Yehoshua that before he wrote his commentary on Shas, he learned Shas 36 times. And we have over here on the sheet, Shas Teshuvas Avnei Tzedek, number 5 on your sheets, that one of the Talmidei Chassam Sofer bring over here, that somebody was once challenging the Pnei Yehoshua. Maybe the Pnei Yehoshua was a little bit confused about a certain sugya. So this student of the Chassam Sofer says, the Pnei Yehoshua confused about the sugya. Let me tell you what I heard from my Heilige Rebbe, the Chassam Sofer, about the Pnei Yehoshua. The Chassam Sofer said, since the times of the Rashba, we never had a Perush on Shas, the likes of the Pnei Yehoshua. The Kajnat Magid said that there is Ruach HaKodesh in the Sefer of Pnei Yehoshua. And we have over here, on number 4, that the Chida in his travels came to Worms in the year 1754. He came to Varmaiza, and he visited the Pnei Yehoshua, and he says over here he came to Frankfurt am Main in 1741, and the Pnei Yehoshua, his fame had spread to the whole world. And he says, "V'ani atzar zochisi lekabel pnei shchina iza yamim." Listen to how the Chidah describes his encounter with Pnei Yehoshua. I was zoicha to behold the countenance of the divine presence for a number of days. And what did the Pnei Yehoshua look like? Umarehu kemare malach Elokim. He looked like an angel. That the Pnei Yehoshua looked like a malach. So you say, how did the Chidah know what a malach looked like? As they say, it takes one to know one. Okay? So, and the Pnei Yehoshua said, the Chida says Pnei Yehoshua gave him a gift, Sefer Pnei Yehoshua on Masechta on Seder Moed, as a present that just came out. Interestingly, in the Chida's diary, in the Magal Tov, the Chida writes that the wife of the Pnei Yehoshua was a big milumedes, and she was listening carefully to all the chidushim the Pnei Yehoshua said. And finally, after a number of chidushim, his wife said, "Oh, that was a good gezakt. You're saying that's a good one." And the Pnei Yehoshua said, "It took until now for me to say a good Dvar Torah. What about before?" That's what the Chida records in his diary. And then we're going to come back, B'ezras Hashem. It's interesting, when the Pnei Yehoshua died in the year 516, which is the year 1756, who was maspid the Pnei Yehoshua? Pnei Yehoshua was the Rav in Frankfurt the Main. The Noid Yehuda was maspid him. Even though the Pnei Yehoshua left in his tzava that nobody should be maspid me, but the Noid Yehuda paskin that since the Pnei Yehoshua is Rabban shall call Pnei Agoyla, we do not have to listen to his tzava. In fact, the Talmud of the Noid Yehuda, the Shalos HaTshuvos Tshuva Me'ava, Rabbi Elazar Flackles writes that based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Samaches, that when Rabbi Elazar HaGadol passed away, Rabbi Akiva gashed himself and cut himself, despite the fact that there's an Isra of Lois Siskoidudu, but it doesn't apply to the Gadol Hadar. Likewise, and Rabbi Yehuda extrapolated that even though the Pnei Yehoshua said, "Don't be maspid me," there's no mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames when you're dealing with Rabban shal kol bnei Agoyla. Okay, so this is the Pnei Yehoshua. His kever, I was just there with the Heimwitz Mishpacha, thanks for reminding me. In Frankfurt, the Main, we were just there about 2 weeks ago. And
he was living the same time as the Ramah?
No, he's after the Ramah. He's after the Ramah. He was in the time of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz.
1700, 300 years.
It was the time of Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. Okay, so the Pnei Yehoshua says as follows. He wants to know what is the significance that Moshe Rabbeinu davened 515 tefillos. Why not 514? Why not 613? What is the significance? What is the meaning of that? Says the holy Pnei Yehoshua. We know that the Ribbon Shalom told Moshe Rabbeinu, Uri Yisiha v'sham aloi savar. Look at Israel, gaze at it, but you ain't going there. You cannot enter Eretz Yisrael. Not only did the Ribbon Shalom tell Moshe he's not going to enter Eretz Yisrael, he also told him with a shvua, he swore that Moshe Rabbeinu would not enter Eretz Yisrael. He said, Lo chein, lo saviu. Therefore, do not bring this people, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem swore that Moshe cannot go into Eretz Yisrael. So why would Moshe even have a havamina to daven to be able to enter? God said no, and he swore. However, says the Pnei Yehoshua, Moshe daven bo'es hahi leimar. Why? Look in Rashi number 6. Bo'es hahi la'achar shekivashti eretz sichon va'oig. After I conquered sichon and oig, which is Ever LeYarden, dimisi, says Moshe, it seemed to me, shema hutar haneder. Maybe the neder that God made would become mutter. Meaning as follows. God took an oath that Moshe Rabbeinu cannot enter. However, Moshe began getting closer and closer. He conquered Eretz Sichon. He conquered Eretz Oig. Mar v'raboisai, Eretz Sichon and Oig. Is that part of Eretz Yisrael? Or is that not part of Eretz Yisrael? Avada is part of Eretz Yisrael. Is Ever LeYarden part of Eretz Yisrael? Of course it is. If somebody lives there, do they get the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael? 1,000%. If you live in Petra, you're Mekayim the mitzvah of Yishuv Ha'aretz. If you live in Jordan, you're Mekayim the mitzvah of Yishuv Ha'aretz. Really? Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky learns that from Chazal in this week's Parsha. Gemara and Saita, thank you very much. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvarei.
Amen.
Rabbi Yaakov learns it from a Gemara on this week's Parsha. Chazal say that when Moshe Rabbeinu was told he can't go into Eretz Yisrael, Moshe said, please let me go in. So the Gemara says, why did Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into Eretz Yisrael? You think he wanted to go in to eat the fruit, v'chi lecho peros, he wanted to go in? So it says the Gemara, no, he wanted to go in to Mekayeh, to what? To be Mekayeh mitzvahs hatluyois ba'aretz. To be Mekayeh the mitzvahs that are dependent on the land. Correct, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, the Gemara should have said more pashut. He wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael to Mekayim the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael. Why do you have to come up with this reason? He wanted to go into Mekayim Truma, Maser, and all the mitzvahs that are dependent on the land. He wanted to go in because there's a mitzvah to live in the land. According to Ramban, you have to live in the land. Says Rabbi Yaakov, because he already got the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael. How? Because he was in Eretz Sichon V'oig. So the Gemara couldn't have said he wanted to go into Mekayim in the midst of living. He was living there already. He wanted to go into Mekayim mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz. Mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz are only in Israel proper, not Me'aver LeYarden. Because there's when God created the world, that's what He said. So that's why, the mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz are only Eretz Yisrael proper. But Yishuv ha'aretz is
So the name God, Duvain, and whatever, Chayim, Shev, Nashim, didn't have to do Truma, nothing. They did.
Midaraisa, no. Okay? So, fine. More than that, the Ribbon Shalom said, I began Hachilesi Teis Lefanecha, and the Pnei Yehoshua quotes a Medrash, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the angel of the Emorim, and he put it under the feet of Moshe, and he told Moshe, step on his neck. So Moshe says, what's going on here? God said, I'm not going into Eretz Yisrael. I can't live in the land. And here it is, I'm conquering Sichon, I'm conquering Oig, I'm destroying the angel of the Amori. Maybe the Rebbe Shem had a change of heart. Ba'es hahi, va'eschanan el Hashem, ba'es hahi. I pleaded to God on that time, when I conquered Eretz Sichon, when I conquered Eretz Oig, when I stepped on the neck of the Amori. Now the Gemara tells us that in the end of Baba Basra, in the end of Masechta Tainis, that a special thing happened on Tu B'Av. The Gemara wants to know. The Gemara says, "Lo hayu yamim tovim liYisrael ki chamisha asar b'av." What happened about Tu B'Av? One of the things the Gemara says, that until Tu B'Av, for 40 years, God didn't speak to Moshe Rabbeinu. So Rashi says he didn't speak to him. It says, "Vayomer Hashem, Vayomer Hashem, Vayomer Hashem." No, he didn't speak to him intimately, face to face. It says Vayomer, but it doesn't say Vayedaber. Even though Vayedaber is a lashon kasha, but it's also more of an intimate type of expression. Meaning, until Tu B'Av in year 40, the Rebbe Shem stopped speaking to Moshe in a personal way. Says the Pnei Yehoshua, and in that case, we could safely assume Moshe did not have the gumption to start asking to enter Eretz Yisrael until when? Until Rebbe Shem, so to speak, took him back, which was when? On the 40th year on Tu B'Av. And what was Moshe Rabbeinu's last day of his life? Zayin Adar. So let's make the following cheshbon. If you calculate the Tefillos of Moshe Rabbeinu in year 40, from Tu B'Av until Zayin Adar, let's make a cheshbon. Let's take out Av and let's take out Adar for a minute. We have Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves, Shvat, 6 months. How many days are in 6 months? 180. But Malei Chaser, minus 3 days, 177. Add the 7 days of Adar, 184. Add the 16 days in Av, 200 days. How many tefillos do we say a day? 3 a day. How many tefillos did Moshe daven? 600. But wait a second. So probably every tefillah that Moshe daven, Shachris, Mincha, Marav, he said, Rebbe Shalom, let me go into Eretz Yisrael, let me go into Eretz Yisrael, let me go into Eretz Yisrael. But we know on Shabbos you're now to make personal bakashos. How many Shabbosos in 100 in 200 days? 28. So 28 times 3 is what? 84. What? Is 84. So it comes out, Moshe Rabbeinu had how many tefillos to daven? 516. But Hashem said, Hashem didn't start appearing to Moshe Rabbeinu again until when? Tu B'Av. And we know the Rebbe Shem was not miyached and Moshe B'Layla, so he must have started b'yoyim. Says the Pnei Yehoshua, 515 is not some kind of random number that Moshe happened to pick 515 because it's Gematria Vaschanan. That is the precise number of tefillos starting on Tu B'Av, Shachris, ending. Now, when did Moshe die on Zayin Adar? We know we say Tzidkascha, Mincha time, because Moshe Rabbeinu passed away Mincha time. So he had Shachris and Mincha on day 1. He had Marav, Shachris, and Mincha on the last day. A total of 515 tefillos. Says the Pnei Yehoshua, half of a fella. It's not random. It's not coincidence. Moshe davened 515 because that was the number of tefillos he was able to.
Would you say that you do when you come to die?
No.
Otherwise, why did he stop then?
Oh, we said he started then because until then he didn't have the guts.
So it means by Hanan is basically after faith.
Yeah. At the end of his life, he says, Vo'ez Chanan.
It's after faith. after he died.
Before he died.
After he died, because how would you know where he's going to die?
You want to know now, did Moshe say the word Va'eschanan before he davened the 515?
Yes.
I don't know, I wasn't there. But it could be he did. It could be he did. And Niva v'lo yada maniva. He was saying, I davened. He didn't know exactly that.
The 515 is not involved there.
The word that came from Hashem didn't come from Moshe.
Yeah, that's,
It came from Hashem.
we don't know.
Why you saying Asmachta?
This is the Pnei Yehoshua. That Moshe Rabbeinu davened 515. Why did he daven 515? That was available. It wasn't a random number. That was the number of tefillos that Moshe had available to daven to the Rebbeinu Shem. So a Musaf when? Shabbos? Shabbos you can't make personal bakashas. Yeah. Okay. So my Rabbi said that was the number of tefillos that were available to Moshe Rabbeinu. This was the first pshat of the Pnei Yehoshua. Comes the Pnei Yehoshua, and the Pnei Yehoshua says another pshat. Look at number 12. Comes the Pnei Yehoshua, Masechta Brachos and Daf Lamed Beis. Says the Pnei Yehoshua, it is well known, and I'm sure everybody here knows it, that how many forces of Midas Hadin are there? Very good. I see everybody knows. There are 6 forces of Midas Hadin. And the Koyach of Midas Hadin is what number? Elokim. What's Elokim? Very good. 86. Right? We're on a roll here today. Yeah? Elokim is 86. And there are 6 forces of Din. What's 6 times 86? 516. So Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to daven to mevatel all the forces of Din, all 516 forces of Din, and Hashem said, well, hold your horses, Rav Lach, if you're mevatel all the Din in the world, there's not going to be any midas Din, you got to leave something. So Hashem said, cut it right by the end. You could daven 515, but not 516. If you daven 516 tefillos, then you'll be mevatel all the dinim completely. So Moshe Rabbeinu left a little bit midas hadin, but he was able to be mevatel 515 out of 516. So what we have to explain is, what in the world does this mean? That there are 6 forces of din. How do we know there are 6 forces of din? Where does this come from? And what does it mean that Moshe Rabbeinu was mevatel almost all of them? So I'm sure you remember from when you learned Yechezkel in depth, in Parak Tes, Pasuk Aleph, the Pasuk says like this, Vayikra ve'oznai kol gadol emar. Yechezkel says, they called out in my voice a great, powerful sound. Karvu pekudoi soyer. Approach the appointed ones to destroy the city. Ve'ish kli mashchei soy biyadayin. Each man with his weapons of destruction in his hand. V'hinei shisha anoshim ba'im. 6 men were coming, midarach shar ha'elyon, from the upper gate, asher mafna tzafayna, that was opened in the north. As we know, Marav Rabbi say, all evil comes from the north. All bad stuff comes from the north. That's why Jews go to Florida, right? So there's a concept that all evil comes from the north. The reason is, well, for example, when Yirmiyah prophesied about the impending Churban, the Rebbeinu Shalom told Yirmiyah, "Mitzafain tipasach hara," the evil will come from the north. What are you talking about? Bavel's in the north of Israel? I thought in Bavel they say "B'marava Amri," so that means Bavel is in the east. Bavel's not in the north. So Yaakov Emden says, yeah, it's in the east. However, there are mountains in between. The only way to get there is to come from the north. But be it as it may, the north represents Midas Hadin. And that is because if you are in the Marava, if you're the Shechina, which is in the west, your right side is the Daraim. That's Midas Rachamim. Your left side is Midas Hadin. That's why Avraham Avinu, he's always Haloich v'Nosaya Hanegba. Yeah, but he also goes up. We don't hear about that. We never find Haloich v'Nosaya Hatzafayna, because Avraham Avinu is Midas HaChesed. That's why in the Torah we'll never say Avraham Avinu goes north, only south. South is Midas HaRachamim. Kodesh HaKadoshim is in the north, because we have to be mevatel the Midas Hadin. But what do you mean it's in the north? It's in the north of what? It's in the north of the Beis HaMikdash? Okay, that's so the Gemara Masechta Shabbos says, who are these appointed ones to destroy the city, because in Pasuk Beis it says, "V'hinei shisha anashim ba'im." 6 men were coming. It says Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, "Uman ninhu shisha anashim." Who are these 6 men? Amr of Chitzta, Ketzef, Af, V'chema, Mashchis, Meshaber, Mechala. These are the 6 bad guys. Ketzef is anger. Af is fury. V'chema is fierce anger. Mashchis is destruction. Meshaber is breakage. Mechala is devastation. These are the 6 forces of din. In fact, interestingly, the Megala Amukos, whose yahrzeit is Wednesday, Yud Gimel Av, he wrote 252 Perushim on the first pasuk of this week's Parsha. Chanan. Yep. He wrote 252 Perushim in the words Ravlach. In fact, he also wrote 1,000 Perushim on the small Aleph of Vayikra. Okay? By the way, that's a lot. Okay? So, the Megala Amukos says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he went into Eretz Yisrael, you know what he wanted to do? He wanted to be mevatel all 6 forces of din. That's why he said, Ebrana, let me cross over, V'era. The vav is extra, says Megala Amukos. That indicates that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to be mevatel. Look in the final 2 lines of the Megala Amukos. The vav is Yisera, al vav tumais. He wanted to be mevatel all 6 forces of Tumah. In fact, Marv Rabbi correspond. We know there are 6 forces of Tumah, because how many levels of Tumah are there? There's Avi Avois HaTumah. What's Avi Avois HaTumah? San Francisco, right? Or a mess itself. Or, by the way, I was just in Berlin. Berlin's giving them a run for their money. Okay? Avi Avois HaTumah is a dead body. Av HaTumah is someone who touches a dead body. Rishon L'Tumah is someone who touched a dead body, or someone who touches a sheretz. A sheretz is also an Av HaTumah. Sheni L'Tumah is food or drink that touches a Rishon. Shlishi L'Tumah, could you have a Shlishi? Truma, that becomes Tameh. Ravi, could you have Ravi? Kodshim. So that means there's 6 levels of Tumah. Avi Avois, Av, Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Ravi. Why are there 6? Because there's 6 koichos of din. There's 6 forces of din. So the question is, what does it mean there's 6 forces of din? Why are there 6 forces of din? And how did Moshe Rabbeinu think he's going to be able to conquer and overcome the 6 forces of din when he entered Eretz Yisrael? As the Pnei Yehoshua said, Moshe Rabbeinu davened how many tefillos? 5:15. He wanted to daven 5:16. He wanted to be mevatel all 6 forces of Tumah. That's why there's an extra vav. Ebrana v'era. What are the 6 forces of Tumah? How are you mevatel them? Raise your hand if you daven Nusach Sfard. Don't worry, we're not going back to that subject. Okay?
Which Nusach Sfard?
So we know Nusach Ashkenaz, Friday night between Kabbalah Shabbos and Mariv, we say Bameh Madlikin. I remember when I went to camp in Camp Monk, they were real yekas there. So they said Bameh Madlikin after Mariv, yeah? Does that, I think, do Yakis do that?
Someone does.
I think they do that. That's what I remember. But most Nusach Ashkenaz shows they say Bameh Madlikin between Kabbalah Shabbos and Mariv. But Nusach Sfard, they say something that's much shorter. Kegavna. It might be harder to say, but it takes much less time. They say Kegavna. What does it say in Kegavna? Is the Zohar Kadosh in Parshas Truma. The Zohar says, Kar'ayol Shabbasa. When Shabbos enters, Ihi is Yachadas. Shabbos unifies this Parashas Misitra Achara and separates from the side of Tumah. V'chol dinin misabren minei, and all forces of evil are removed. V'ihi ishtaras bichuda denehiro kadisha, and Shabbos remains in the unity of the holy light. V'isatras b'chama itrin, Shabbos is crowned with many crowns. Legabe malka kadisha. V'chol sholtane rugzin, and all forces of anger, umari dedina, and masters of kayach hadin, kulhu arkin, they all flee. V'les sholtanu achara b'chulul almen. There's no other dominion in the whole world other than God. But during the week, what has dominance during the week? Clearly the Zohar is saying, Midas Hadin. Midas Hadin clearly has dominance during the week. Meaning Shabbos we're free of dinim, all the dinim skedaddle, and during the week the dinim are there. So now we see there's a connection between Midas Ha Din and the Yemei HaChoil. So clearly then, the number 6 is connected to the fact that there's 6 days of the week. 6 Yemei HaChoil. The Baal HaTanya wrote a Sefer Likutei Torah, and he says an amazing remez. We know that in the creation of the world, how many times does it say Yud Kei Vav Kei? 0. In Bereshis Parak Aleph, the Shem Havaya is not mentioned because in the 6 days of creation there's no Midas Harachamim, it's all Koyach Hadin. Bereshis Bar Elokim, Vayom Elokim, Vayivra Elokim, Vayom Elokim. But at the end of the 6 days, right before the 7th day, Vayechal Elokim, Midas Hadin is over, to indicate that Ba Shabbos, Ba Rachamim. You hear this? Vayechal Elokim, Vayoyim Hashvi. Whenever you say Kiddush, you should think, Vayechal Elokim, Vayoyim Hashvi. Midas Hadin ends when it comes to Shabbos. Vayechal Elokim, Vayoyim Hashvi. That's why the Ramah says, technically Kiddush should start Vayichulu Hashemayim. Yeah? Vayichulu Hashemayim Ba'aretz Chol Tzom, Vayichal Elokim, Vayoyim Hashvi. But we don't start Kiddush. Vayichulu Hashemayim. What do we say? Yom Hashishi. We say Yom Hashishi out loud. Vayichulu Hashemayim. Why? The Ramah says, what? We want to make a remes to the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So we say Yom Hashishi Vayichulu Hashemayim. We say quietly Vayar Vayivoiker because the words Yom Hashishi Vayichulu Hashemayim make absolutely no sense. You can't say the 6th day. He completed the heavens. Hashem didn't complete it on the 6th day. So you say, Vayera, Vayivoiker. Yom HaShishi, meaning it was evening, it was day, the 6th day. Vayichulu Hashemayim ve'aretz. In fact, the Chassam Sofer asks, how are you allowed to say, Vayera, Vayivoiker, Yom HaShishi? It's a half a pasuk. The pasuk begins, Vayara Elokim es kol asher asa v'hinei tov ma'od, Vayera, Vayivoiker, Yom HaShishi. Why don't we say the whole pasuk? You're not allowed to say half a pasuk.
Because Tov Ma'od means mothers.
So Chassam Sofer says that Tov Ma'od refers to death, and it's not really a very happy subject to bring up Friday night. Imagine, you haven't seen your kids the whole week. Every time they ask you something, you're too busy, and you come to the Shabbos day, you say, before we start the festive meal, I just want to let everyone know everyone's going to die one day. Right? That's not really a very happy way to begin the Shabbos. So we omit Vayar Elokim es kol asher asa v'hinei tov ma'od, and we start Vayera Vayivoker. Fine, but listen to how Kiddush starts then, and listen to the remez of the pasuk. Yom Hashishi Vayichulu Hashemayim. As Shabbos is coming, what enters the world? The Shem Havaya Midas Harachamim. What is coming to an end? Vayichal Elokim. Elokim is coming to an end. Meaning the 6 weekdays are days of Elokim, 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 Elokim. Midas Hadin, 6 days of the week, 6 forces of Ra and Din. Come Shabbos, Vayichal Elokim. Come Shabbos, Yom Hashishi, Vayichulu Hashemayim. In fact, the Gra points out, and these are all Ramazim that I saw in the Sefer Shvilei Pinchas, Likutei Amarim, Tafshin Ayin Aleph on Parshas Vaschanan. The Gra says just on the first day of creation alone, it says, Bereshis bara Elokim, V'ruach Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayar Elokim, Vayavdel Elokim, Vayikra Elokim. Already, from the first day of the Bria, the Rebbeinu Shem created these 6 Midos Hadin. They're part of the fabric of creation. There is something called Sheish Bate Dinim, the Pnei Yehoshua says. 6 courts of Din, corresponding to the 6 days of the week. But come Ba Shabbos, Ba Menucha, Vayichal Elokim, Yom Hashishi Vayichulu. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to be Mevatel all 516. Rebbeinu Shem says you got to leave a little bit of Din in the world. Now listen to this remez. So how do you start Shabbos? You pick up a kais. What's in your kais? Yayin. What's the numerical value of kais? 86. What's the gematria of yayin? 70. 156. What's 156? Yud Kei Vav Kei times 6. So while during the week it was 6 Elokims. Now we're up to Vayichal Elokim. We got to chase out the Midas Hadin. So we pick up Kois Yayin. Kois Yayin is 6 times Yud Kei Vav Kei to chase out the 6 forces of Din. But then we take Lechem. What's the gematria of Lechem? Says Bnei Yissaschar.
78.
Lechem. Lechem. Not with poppy seeds on top. Regular Lechem. Without the sesame seeds. 78. With the seeds you could add a few more. Lechem is 78. But we don't just take 1, we take 2. 156. Like Kois Yayin again. 6 times Shem Havaya to chase out the 6 Koichos Hadin. I would like to suggest when Moshe came into Eretz Yisrael, he wants to chase out the 6 forces of Din. So whose bones does he have with him? Atzmais? Yosef. What's Yosef? 156. 6 times Yud Kei Vav Kei. He has to chase out the 6 forces of Din. Marv Rabbi say, who here davens Nusach Svard still? Yeah? So in Nusach Ashkenaz we don't say any of this. But Nusach Svard, one of the kapitlach that we say during the week, I think you say it, Perak Samach Zayin, Lam Natseach Beneginos Mizmar Shir Leikim Yichanenu. You say that during the week? It's part of Psukei de Zimra, yeah? What?
Before Baruch Shama.
The Yakis say that?
No. Before Baruch Shama.
Okay. It's not part of my Nusach Ashkenaz. No, I'm talking about Shachris. Okay? The Nusach Svart says, Samach Zayin, Lam Natseach Beneginos Mizmar Shir. Do you say that on Shabbos? No. What do you say on Shabbos in lieu of Lam Natseach Mizmar Beneginos Mizmar Shir? The Arizal says, Perak Yotes, Lam Natseach Mizmar David Hashemayim Misabim Kvarkel. Now without the Arizal, we would have no idea what's in lieu, because we know there are a lot of things we add on Shabbos. But the Arizal says the replacement of Samach Zayin, Lam Natseach Beneginos Mizmar Shir, is Lam Natseach Mizmar David. You know why? Because Lam Natseach Beneginos Mizmar Shir has what name of Hashem 6 times? Elokim. So instead on Shabbos we say Tairas Hashem Tamima, Eidos Hashem Ne'emana, Pikudei Hashem Yisharim, Mitzvahs Hashem Bara, Yiras Hashem Torah. We say a kapitel that has 6 times Shem Havaya. So you have Kois Yayin 6 times Havaya, you have Lechem Mishnah 6 times Havaya, you have the Atzmais Yosef 6 times Havaya, and you have Perak Yotes 6 times Havaya. Because Shabbos is the day of Vayichal Elokim. We could suggest, Rabbi Isai, a very big chiddush. I just realized this morning. What tefillah does an Avel say? Now this tefillah, people think it's a memorial tefillah. It's not a memorial tefillah. People think they should think about their relative when you say this tefillah. You should not think about your relative. You think about the Ribbon Shalom. This is not a Kel Mali Rachamim. Kaddish. What's the reason to say Kaddish? It's a zechus for the relative. But it's not a memorial. It's not like, when I say the Kaddish, I'm supposed to remember my favorite recipe that they made. You're sanctifying the name of the Ribbon Shalom. But you're protecting them from Midas Hadin. How? Yiskadel, v'yiskadesh, Shemei Rabbah, Roshei Tevois, Yud Vav Shin Reish, 516. Wow. That's the Kayach of Kaddish, that Rizal says. Yiskadel, v'yiskadesh, Shemei Rabbah. It's the tefillah that Moshe dared not say. Moshe was told, don't say it. Don't say 516, you can only say 515. So from there we learn that imagine if we could say 516. So Yiskadel v'Yiskadei Shmei Rabbah is the tefillah that Moshe was told not to say. That's why it's such a powerful tefillah. Because whenever the teacher says don't do it, it must be really good. I remember I once went to I guess when I was in Koila, I went to a chinuch training class. So the one of the courses was, how do you teach like delicate topics in the Chumash, Yehuda V'Tomer, how do you teach it to kids? They said the best way to teach the kids is tell the kids we're skipping it and we're not learning it. Then they'll make sure to learn it very well. That's the best way. So when the Rebbeinu Shalom tells Moshe, Hashem told Moshe, Heref mimeni by the Chera Egel, relax, stop davening. So Moshe knew he could daven. So the Koyach of Kaddish emanates from Rav Lach. So let's try the following idea. Pnei Yehoshua says 2 pshatim, but I think they both fit together very nicely. Pnei Yehoshua says that what's the significance of 515? Significance of 515 is These were the number of available tefillos to Moshe Rabbeinu from Tu B'Av until Zayin Adar. How is that? There are really 600 tefillos, but not Shabbos. Then the Pnei Yehoshua says that why did Moshe Rabbeinu daven 515 tefillos? He wanted to be mevatel all the various midos hadin. Now, in the first pshat of the Pnei Yehoshua, why did he daven 515 and not 600? Because Shabbos, you're not allowed to make personal requests, right? But if we put the two perushim of the Pnei Yehoshua together, we could say very beautifully that Moshe Rabbeinu had one kavanah here. Moshe Rabbeinu was mechaven to be oiker and to be mamtik and to replace midas hadin with midas harachamim. Now, he didn't need to do it on Shabbos because, as we know, Shabbos is already vayuchal Elokim. Shabbos, the midas hadin has already ceased. Shabbos is already Yom HaShishi vaychulu Hashamayim. Shabbos already has the Kos Yayin. Shabbos already has the Lechem Mishnah. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, all I need to do is not just that these are the available slots to daven. Moshe Rabbeinu says, all I need to do is daven for the dinim of the Yemei HaChoil to be nizbatel, and by doing so, I'll be mevatel all the dinim. But I don't have to daven for Shabbos, because Shabbos, the dinim are already nizbatel. Marv Rabboisai, when did Moshe Rabbeinu start this quest of trying to mevatel the dinim? On the 15th day of Av. Why do you think he started then? He started then very, very purposely. Let's explain as follows. The Magen Avram says, is the month of Av a good month or a bad month? Is the month of Av a good month or a bad month? Do you schedule court cases for the month of Av? Do you schedule surgery for the month of Av? So the Magen Avram says, the same way the whole month of Adar is good, stay away from the entire month of Av, because Kishem Shemisha Nichnas Av Mematim, Kach Misha Nichnas Adar Marbim. But conversely, Kishem that we're marbe the whole Adar, so too we're mamayit the whole Av. Comes the Chassam Sofer and he says, not so fast. Just because the whole Adar is good, it doesn't mean the whole Av is bad. You know why the whole Adar is good even the days after Purim? Because those days are sandwiched in between Purim and Pesach. And it comes out Purim and Pesach. We know that you're supposed to start learning Hilchos Pesach 30 days before. So Purim and Pesach are embracing each other, so to speak. So all the days are sandwiched in between. But says the Chassam Sofer, after Av is good. Especially after Tu B'Av. Says the Chassam Sofer, an amazing chidush. Once Tu B'Av comes, it's actually a new month. There are 2 months in this 30-day period. There's Av, and there's Menachem Av. People think the whole Av is Menachem. What we say Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av. No, not Menachem Av. It's not Menachem Av. It's Chodesh Av. Menachem Av is in 15 days. There are 2 months in this period, says the Chassam Sofer. Av is the first 9 days or first 15 days. Menachem Av is when the Rebbeinu Shem already starts to sweeten the dinim. When the Meisei Midbar stopped dying. When the Rebbeinu Shem began speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu again, that's the day when all the dinim of Av, our nimtak, are sweetened. So we could suggest that if Moshe Rabbeinu's quest is to sweeten the midas hadin, he wanted to daven 516 tefillos, connected all 6 forces of din. What day of the year would Moshe Rabbeinu begin that quest of trying to sweeten and temper the din? Menachem Av, Tu B'Av, the day that midas hadin starts to sweeten for Klal Yisrael. And as we know that even though the Rebbeinu Shem told us, Rav Lach, don't say Tefillah 5:16, but that is the kayach of the words that Arizal says in number 28, Yiskadel v'Yiskadesh Shmei Rabbah. But it comes out unbelievable. Where do we learn all these chedushim from about 5:15 and 5:16? The Pnei Yehoshua. So they say about the Pnei Yehoshua was born in the year MS. MS is the year 1681. And what year did he pass away? Yosher! The year 516. The Pnei Yehoshua passed away in the year Yud Vav Shin Reish, Yiskadel V'Yiskadesh Shmei Rabbah, the year 1756, indicating the Pnei Yehoshua was Maschil be'emes u'masayim be'yosher. So these are some of the secrets of Va'eschanan and the Tefillos of Moshe Rabbeinu, which began on Tu B'Av, and from which we benefit Ad Hayom Hazeh. Rabbi Isai, I will see you, Bezos Hashem, in 2 weeks.
What happened?
Don't be so sad. It's okay. Okay?
When are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going?
Where am I going? Going to Australia. Down under.
Where are you going?
Australia.
Oh, Australia.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.